Welcome to Magic Hour. I'm your host, Paul Chappell. And today we take a look at the bonkers film. And I really mean it. It is bonkers. Cruella from Disney. It's on Disney Plus. You can get it on Disney Plus Premium. Same way they did Mulan. This movie was crazy. I had to review it. And I had a lot of choices to review this weekend. You know, I could have did A Quiet Place. I just got finished watching The Nevers. Could have done that. But I got to do Cruella. This movie was one of the craziest things I've seen this year. It was a hybrid movie. It was like an origin story for Cruella, who is the most evil villain in Disney history, really. I mean, I can't believe this villain even exists because you just think about what she's trying to do in all the movies. And it's a very popular property, the 101 Dalmatians. They've had like 2 sequels to the animation. They've had a live animation, a live action, I should say, remake of 101 Dalmatians. And then they had a sequel to that. I haven't seen the sequel, but I've seen the original animation. I've seen the live action, and they just keep going with this property. I guess kids like it because it's a kid's film for a villain who's literally trying to skin puppies. Could you think of anything more just repugnant? And this is a Disney movie. But it's an origin story. It's a biopic. It's a heist movie. It's a kid's film. It's a kind of a comedy. Not really, though. But, they tried to make it a little bit funny. They took it way too seriously. Because if you watch the original animation and the live action version, they basically play up Cruella like this bonkers, over the top, just seditious villain. In this movie, she's not a villain, really. She's the hero of the story. And I was like, how are they going to do that? And they did it, and it worked. It really did work. I mean, first of all, what they do in situations like this, when they got somebody that has a record of being villainous like this, they find somebody even more villainous, or they create somebody even more villainous, and that makes them look a little bit better, which is what they did to Cruella. And she doesn't have the same goals as the 101 Dalmatians, but we'll get to that. But this film felt like a Tim Burton movie opening up, because we find out that Cruella, who was actually born Estella, that's her real name, Estella. Her mother calls her Cruella whenever she does something bad. So it just kind of sticks at a certain point, because she's always doing bad stuff. She grows up in like a boarding school environment in England. She's like a lot of Tim Burton movies. She's different. She's born with this white and black hair. She looks like, Edward Scissorhands. She likes black. So I naturally thought that Tim Burton had something to do with this. I haven't seen a producing credit or anything. He didn't direct it as far as I can see. But there's a lot of gothic style stuff in the movie, which is like straight out of Tim Burton's, mindset. So there was a lot of influence I felt from Tim Burton. That would be the one thing have to say would be bad about it. It felt kind of like a ripoff when it started. And then, of course, I'm just going to go ahead and go through the bad stuff so we can get that out of the way, because it was a good movie. I did like it, but these are a couple things I didn't like. The fact that they also played the same songs that you always hear in any movie set in the 60s, and that's pretty much the Rolling Stones, the Beatles, David Bowie. They even had that song from Nancy Sinatra, These Boots Are Made for Walking, and they actually showed Cruella walking in boots. It was like way over the top and on the nose. And I was just like, really? Do I have to hear these songs every time we have I know these songs were popular during that time period, but can't you just dig into... I know there's a lot of songs that were made during that time period. Can we just dig into the catalog a little bit and find something that's not so obvious, that hasn't been played a million times in movies like this? Once I got over that, though, once they were able to get the setup, then the setup is basically Cruella, her mother, something happens to her. I'm not going to, spoilers. I'm going to have a few spoilers. I'm trying not to give you too many spoilers because I went into this movie without spoilers. I've been doing this thing where I don't watch trailers because they give so much away in trailers. I didn't know anything about this movie, so I went in with my eyes wide open, and I think I got a better feeling for what they were trying to accomplish. So the basic setup is that Cruella, she's orphaned at a very early age. She's roaming around London. She meets up with these two guys, and the two guys, of course, are Jasper and Horace, the same two imbeciles she calls them that she dealt with in all the movies that work for her. In this version of Cruella's story, she actually grows up with these guys. So the way I see it, and I've read a little bit more about it since I watched it, they actually made this movie as kind of like a prequel to the live action version of 101 Dalmatians. But there's a few things they took from both the animated and the live action version. So it wasn't a pure prequel. For one thing, they made a lot of the characters black. Like Anita, the woman in the movie that knows Cruella from boarding school. In fact, they kept that little plot point. They met each other in boarding school. They make Anita black. Roger is not even in the movie. The main character or the main human character. I guess he's really not the main character from either animated or 101 Dalmatians. It's really the dogs. But they took that plot point from the animated version. We know in the live action version, Anita is actually a fashion designer. So they took some elements from the live action version because the whole plot point in this movie is that Cruella really wants to be a fashion designer. And she's a fashion designer in the live action version of 101 Dalmatians. So they took heavily from the live action version. I realized that. But like I said, they did take the Anita thing from the animated version. So the movie was very fun. Let me just say that right off the bat. The one other thing I will say, and then I won't say any more bad things about it. It was a long movie. I think this movie is like 2 hours and 14 minutes long. I don't know if the credits are included in that, but it's a solid 2 hours. I think they're allowing these movies to be a lot longer these days because people are watching them at home. You can go and take a break, which is I did like 3 times. So I really appreciate that because I think you get more out of a movie like this, especially something like an original story, if you actually leave some scenes in. And they don't have to chop it down into this 90 minutes that most movies get. So let me just go ahead and say, the primary plot of this movie is that Cruella wants to be a fashion designer. She gets a job. One of her now she's a criminal. Let's be clear about that. She grows up with Jasper and Horace, and they're all thieves. They're really good thieves because they played up Jasper and Horace as being kind of dumb and moronic, especially in the live action version. But in this version, they're actually pretty good thieves, and they're pretty smart. They can trick out, alarm systems and do all that sort of stuff. And they're not really as evil as they were in the other versions of this movie. They actually have heart. They actually care about Cruella. They actually get her a job working for this fashion designer in London. And she is the character played by Emma Thompson. And she is, it turns out, the villain. And it was strange because she had a lot of the traits that you saw in the live action version of 101 Dalmatians. Her name is just the Baroness. But Emma Thompson is great. Mark Strong's in the movie playing her butler. The movie is just about Cruella trying to come up in the fashion world. And they even give her a reason for hating Dalmatians. Emma Thompson's character has 3 Dalmatians herself. And they're kind of mean. So they do give a reason for Cruella's, I guess, obsession with Dalmatians or you could say hatred. I didn't really see hatred in animated or live action version, she just wanted to make this cool coat. In this version, they actually give her a reason for not liking Dalmatians. I thought that was interesting. They give her a background. They explain why she had that old mansion out in the country that Jasper and Horace were using to hide the Dalmatians. They explain all of that. They explain her car, all sorts of stuff, why she dresses a certain way. It just, they try to explain every detail that we know about this character. And it reminded me of Maleficent, the movie they did with Angelina Jolie, and how they kind of redefined that villain too. So there was some obvious influences from that movie as well. There was a great twist in the movie. It's one of these twists I didn't actually see coming. But when it actually happened, it wasn't a ludicrous twist. Sometimes when you don't see a twist coming, you're just like, really? That doesn't make any kind of sense. I've seen that in quite a few movies and television series. This twist that they have set up in the movie makes a whole lot of sense. And it explained everything we come to find out about this version of Cruella, and it makes you sympathetic to her plight. So I thought that was done well. And I just, the plotting, the pacing, like I said, there's so many things happening in this movie that it keeps your interest. And it's just a fun, well-directed, that's the other thing I should say, well-directed movie. Although they borrowed heavily from Tim Burton's visual aesthetic, they used every kind of camera movement in existence. They use steady cams, they use cranes, they use dollies, anything you can think of. They use CGI, camera shots where they go over a building and then they go through the walls or the ceiling or whatever. They did everything. They spent some real money on this movie, but it is a Disney movie, so they could do that. But it's directed by Craig Gillespie. He's the director of I, Tonya, which I haven't seen, The Finest Hours, $1 Million Arm. At least one of these is another Disney film that he did. I expect great things for this guy now. From what I can see, this movie's pretty much a hit. I think it made $27 million. A Quiet Place 2 is actually beating it right now with $57 million, but it actually did pretty decent. $27 million opening. Rotten Tomatoes has it at 73% for the critical, 97% for the audience. But this movie, it's one of those movies about a character that you have grown to hate over the years. I remember watching the animated version of 101 Dalmatians when I was a kid, and I was so terrified of what was going to happen to the dogs. But that kind of takes a backseat in this movie. It's really not about animals. Although there are two really prominent animals in the movie. Cruella has a dog, and Jasper and Horace, well, actually Horace has a dog too, and they're very cute. They do a lot of cute things. So there is a significant animal presence in the movie, but it's not the primary focus. So know that going in with your kids. Know that Cruella is not as evil as she is in those other Dalmatian properties. So you can rest assured that your children can watch this. The only thing I will say to parents is that it kind of glosses over the fact that Cruella grows up as a criminal and lives with these other two men, and they who are also criminals. So I don't know what to say about that. I just would say use your discretion before you let your children watch this. If thievery is something you really have a problem with, this is probably not the best movie to show your kids. But that's all I got for today. That is Cruella, a movie on Disney Plus. Watch it right now, and I think it is also in the theaters. So, if you've been vaccinated, go ahead and see. Go out and have fun, guys. The pandemic is almost over. But let me know what you think in the comments. Give me a like. Subscribe if you haven't already. And ring that bell if you're already a subscriber so you know when my next video drops. And I will see you when I see you. Thanks for watching.